have there been any... I'm trying to think of an example of like a UFO sighting or a extraterrestrial sighting, I guess is the word to use, where things just vanished out of thin air. Because the ones that I'm familiar with are like... there are quite a few examples, but like Commander Fravor, who was flying, I think he was a naval pilot off the coast of San Diego, and he was flying a mission, and he saw a craft fucking essentially like teleport from one spot to another, and that could be in the same vein.
Yep. I think that goes to, I could be wrong here, but I think that goes to understanding quantum mechanics and how to bend time and space. And our current understanding is that time and space is, we don't know how to bend it. It's just very linear. To get from point A to point B, you have to travel along that line, and you can move around it, but you're still traveling on a line to get from point A to point B. Whereas it would seem like when we have some of these sightings where the craft goes instantaneously from A to B, it's like they bend it and whoop, here I am.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, if they can bend it that way, the plausibility of them being able to shift dimensions is highly likely as well.
Because it's like, if you think about space as a flat plane, it would have to be bent into another dimension. Like it would have to be bent somewhere. When paper is folded upon itself, both sides are going up to meet, and it's like, where is that up? That's that extra dimension.
Yep, definitely. Well, there's other stuff too, like Bob Lazar. You familiar with him?
Yeah. An element like 115.
Element 115, and the site that was next to Area 51, I think called S2, and how he just got some contract because his story growing up. I think there's a really cool documentary about him on Netflix. So definitely worth checking out. But he was always just really good at propulsion, and like even as a kid, his mom was freaking out because he was making all these like crazy fast cars, and
he attached a rocket to a normal vehicle. I think it was in like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And that got him, I think that's how he ended up getting this job.
Getting the contract. Yeah. And they were like, hey, we want you to come work on this stuff. And they were pretty vague about it, but he ended up going in and, allegedly worked on extraterrestrial craft, trying to reverse engineer it. And, he talks about everything being very compartmentalized, and you only worked on your stuff and you wrote your briefs and it went up and you never saw anything again.
Meaning like, let's say it's like a traditional UFO, like a saucer with a little bulb in the middle where a dude sits.
Yeah.
Very stereotypical, but like he would be responsible for just the propulsion part of that. How did it move?
Yep.
And then somebody else who didn't really talk to Bob would be responsible for like, what's this material made out of?
Yep. And then someone else would be focused on, let's say, the navigation systems or how that stuff worked. And like that way, if they did have a leak, it wasn't a full picture, and it was so much easier to cover up, push under the rug, make someone seem crazy.
Which is how most military and like classified operations function. You're compartmentalized.
Yep. And so he talked about this element 115 that I think he was back and forth on it. Like, one, we didn't know how to create it. It was something that we didn't have access to. And then also, I think he mentioned that there was a specific recipe or a specific way it could be created, and that, I don't know if he said or if he alleged that we had made deals with extraterrestrials to get more element 115. So we could, basically element 115, for anyone who doesn't know, is alleged to be the element that allows anti-gravity. Without it, they don't know. It's kind of like gas for propulsion for us.
Right. And the thing about the anti-gravity is, one of the theories behind the Commander Fravor incident that we talked about is that they're able to use that gravity to manipulate space-time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why they can move so fast and not have to like arc and turn like we do with...
Because they don't experience G-force.
Exactly. It's just instantaneous up, down, left, right, wherever they want to be.
Yeah.
Which is fucking cool.
Hell yeah, it is. And what I think is fascinating about this is the Bob Lazar story all unfolds in the 80s. And element 115, which is called moscovium, was discovered, we'll say quote unquote discovered, in 2003.
Yeah.
And so it's like Bob knew that it existed, which if you look at a periodic table of the elements, like you can see that there would be a gap there. And it's like, yeah, you know that there are these elements, or you can safely assume.
Yeah.
Because it's like we've discovered element 120, 122, 123. And so it's like we just need to find 115. So there's that aspect of it. But he knew about this element. And it also, the way that he described it with anti-gravity before that was really a prominent thing to be considered, recognize, or that also ties into like the Commander Fravor story, and it matches up to propulsion system that Bob Lazar was talking about, potentially using anti-gravity to move, seems to be a plausible explanation for how the craft that Commander Fravor saw moved. And that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think all of this stuff is super cool. So his story is one that was super public, and he never planned on going public, but he felt threatened and felt followed and thought his life was in danger, and he thought the only way he could stay safe was to go public, because then if he went public and they killed him, all they did was prove him right in his eyes.
He did bring some friends out to some of the hills.
That's why he got scared, because they found him, and he brought some friends out. Do you remember the specifics of that story?
He knew the schedule, because I think they were taking this craft out and actually flying it. And so he brought some friends out to the hills, one of the hills in the area, and they watched it take off.
Yeah. And then somehow got caught, or somehow found out about it, and his contract was terminated, and then people were following him. And
well, they started fucking with him, is what I heard. Like they called his wife and said, or maybe called him and told him that she was having an affair or something. But anyway, that gets into like more of like the personal story as opposed to the like evidence of alien construction.
Right.
And I think that's, I don't know. So like a lot of people would discredit Bob Lazar. Like he claims to have graduated from, oh man, I don't remember all the details.
That university, and then you go look and it's not there.
Yeah, he's been purged from the records or never attended, as the government would want you to believe. And at one of his previous jobs before this, he was working somewhere with propulsion systems, and they also claimed that he had never worked there, but some like old documents finally surfaced that actually had him on
the payroll.
The payroll.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so this motherfucker did work there. So why was the government trying to cover this up?
Well, yeah. Or why would the company say he didn't work there? And then now there's proof that he did. That just leans more to the narrative that goes, oh, maybe this is a sloppy cover up.
Yeah, I think so too. And like it gives his story credibility. It doesn't prove anything.
Of course.
But it gives it more credibility because it raises some eyebrows like, what the fuck was going on there?
It makes you want to dig more.
Yeah. All right, Bob. I'm listening.
Exactly.